Star Trek: The Motion Picture is the movie that transformed a canceled television legend into a philosophical sci-fi spectacle. But the movie that reached theaters almost looked very different. Did you know Earth was originally saved by a lie, not by Decker's sacrifice? Or that the Enterprise almost had to split in half to fight Klingons above Earth? Today we're uncovering 14 hidden truths about Star Trek: The Motion Picture 1979. And hidden beneath the voyage are strange connections to Star Wars and Aliens movies. Number 1. The original ending had no merger. In the film's ending, Decker merges with V'ger in the Ilia probe to help V'ger evolve beyond its original programming. But the original plan was completely different. Before the motion picture became a theatrical film, its story was first written as the opening episode for a new television series called Star Trek Phase 2. That episode was titled In Thy Image. In that version, Kirk brings the Ilia probe down to Earth to prove that humans are V'ger's creator. He wants to show her that V'ger actually came from a human spacecraft, Voyager. So Kirk shows her pieces of human life, a beach, a child, flowers, and then the Starfleet archives, where he shows her documentaries about the Voyager program. But there is one problem. V'ger does not believe it, because all of that evidence is just documentation and recreations of events from centuries earlier. Then while V'ger prepares to destroy Earth, the Ilia probe changes emotionally. After seeing human life up close, she begins to understand that humanity has value. So she lies to V'ger and tells she has seen undeniable proof that humans created it. V'ger trusts the Ilia probe, and it finally stands down. So in the original ending, Earth was not saved by a cosmic merger. It was saved by a machine learning the value of human life and choosing compassion over truth. Number 2. The saucer separation ending. In the film's opening minutes, 3 Klingon warships are obliterated by V'ger's energy cloud. They're gone in seconds, and the movie moves on. But designer Andrew Probert, who helped redesign the Enterprise for the film, had a very different idea for those Klingon ships. In his version, V'ger wouldn't actually destroy the Klingon fleet, but swallow or absorb them into its own energy cloud. That means the Klingon ships were not really gone. They were still trapped somewhere inside V'ger. Then, after V'ger was defeated at the end of the film, those same Klingon ships would be released in orbit around Earth, confused and furious, and immediately open fire on the Enterprise. To survive, the Enterprise would perform an emergency saucer separation, splitting into 2 combat vessels to fight them off. Andrew Probert drew a full series of storyboards for the sequence. The idea was ultimately abandoned because it would have tacked on an extra battle after the main story was already resolved. But Probert had intentionally designed separation features into the Enterprise model, and those design elements later became one of the signature moves of the Enterprise D in the next generation. So the original ending would have been far more action-packed than the quiet, philosophical finale audiences saw in theaters. Number 3. Nobody knew Caveman Spock existed. In 2022, when Paramount released the 4K restoration of the motion picture, the bonus features included something no one had ever seen before: test footage of Leonard Nimoy, dressed in full prehistoric makeup, as a long-haired caveman version of Spock. Producer David Fine had discovered this footage 20 years earlier during work on the 2001 Director's Edition, and had been sitting on it ever since, waiting for the right release. When Fine showed the footage to Adam Nimoy, Leonard's own son, Adam had never seen or heard of it. Fine then showed it to costume experts who specialize in Star Trek wardrobe history. None of them had ever heard of it either. After 2 decades of secrecy, this footage revealed that somewhere during the production of the motion picture, someone put Leonard Nimoy in full Neanderthal makeup. And until 2022, almost nobody in the world knew it existed. Number 5. The film's greatest lost scene. The Spock spacewalk sequence in the finished film, where Spock jets through V'ger's interior alone, was actually a last-minute replacement for something far more ambitious. In the original scripted version, both Kirk and Spock would exit the Enterprise together and explore V'ger on foot. They would encounter swarms of sensor organisms, and Kirk would come under attack from crystalline structures that latched onto his spacesuit, threatening to knock out his oxygen and kill him. Spock would save him with a phaser, and together they'd discover V'ger's memory wall, a crystalline structure storing everything V'ger had ever encountered. including the Klingons and Ilia. Massive sets were built and roughly half the sequence was filmed. But when effects supervisor Douglas Trumbull reviewed the footage, he found it unusable. The sets were so restrictive that wherever you positioned the camera, you got the same two shots. Director Robert Wise gave Trumbull permission to scrap the entire sequence and design a simpler, more visual spacewalk from scratch. The reshoot script pages were dated August 6, 1979. That was 4 months before the premiere. Number 4. The man who drew V'ger built every sci-fi universe. When the Enterprise finally reaches the heart of V'ger, the audience is looking at a design by Sid Mead, an industrial designer from Ford Motor Company who had never worked on a film before. Mead was brought in during post-production by John Dykstra after the original effects team was fired, and his assignment was to visualize V'ger's interior, the single most important visual in the entire movie. Mead's next project was designing the spinner flying police cars and the rain-soaked cityscapes of Blade Runner. After that, he created the light cycles for Tron and the warship Sulaco for James Cameron's Aliens. But here's the connection most people miss entirely. Years before any of those films, Mead had drawn a series of walking cargo vehicles for a U.S. Steel brochure. Joe Johnston, the art director on The Empire Strikes Back, saw those drawings and used them as the direct basis for the Imperial AT-AT walkers. Johnston admitted this in an interview, saying the snow walkers came from Mead's brochure of walking trucks going through the snow, and they turned them into walking tanks. One artist connects V'ger to the sci-fi universe, and it all started with this film. Number 7. A rejected design hiding in plain sight. During that recreation deck scene, there is a wall display showing several ships named Enterprise across history. It includes an old sailing ship, an aircraft carrier, the space shuttle, and eventually the starship Enterprise we all know. But one ship in that display looks strangely different. It does not look like the classic Enterprise with a saucer section and 2 nacelles. Instead, it looks like a ring-shaped starship. That ship is actually the Enterprise XCV-330, and it came from an old design by Matt Jefferies, the man who designed the original USS Enterprise for the 1960s Star Trek series. When Jefferies was first trying to create the look of the Enterprise, he experimented with several different concepts. One of them was that ring-shaped ship, but the design was rejected and never used for the original show. Years later, the motion picture quietly brought it back and placed it on the recreation deck wall as part of Starfleet history. And that wall display later became a tradition across the Star Trek franchise. In the next generation, the display was upgraded into gold relief sculptures. In First Contact, it was replaced again with gold-plated miniature models. So every Enterprise after that carried its own kind of wall of legacy, honoring the ships that came before it. Number 8. A magazine interview saved the ending. The ending where V'ger merges with Decker and Ilia almost did not happen. The problem was that during production, the team was still struggling with the third act, or the ending of the story. Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov, even described the script as a 3-act screenplay without a third act. Then another problem came from Paramount. The studio executives were not fully convinced by the idea that a machine could become a conscious life form, then merge with a human being. To them, the concept felt too abstract and too heavy for a major blockbuster. But then the turning point came from a very strange place. Someone at the studio found an interview in Penthouse magazine with NASA scientist Robert Jastrow. In that interview, Jastrow said that mechanical forms of life, or machine-based life, could possibly exist somewhere in the universe. That quote from a NASA scientist made V'ger's ending feel more scientifically believable. Paramount finally became more willing to approve the ending, so the ending of one of the biggest science fiction films of the 70s was saved by a quote in a men's magazine. Number 9. The Vulcan who was erased from history. Before Star Trek was a movie, it was supposed to be a new television series called Star Trek Phase 2, and Phase 2 did not include Spock. Leonard Nimoy had refused to return, so the writers created a brand new character named Zahn, a full-blooded Vulcan science officer who was deliberately not a Spock replacement, but closer in concept to what the character of Data would later become. Actor David Gautreaux was cast in the role, filmed test footage, and participated in full cast readings. He was ready to be the next face of Star Trek. Then Paramount executive Jeffrey Katzenberg convinced Nimoy to come back. The script was completely overhauled, Zahn was removed, and Spock was written in. But instead of being dropped entirely, David Gautreaux was given a smaller role in the film, playing Commander Branch, the officer who commands the Epsilon 9 station that V'ger destroys in the first act. But even though Zahn was cut from the movie, the concept of a young Vulcan science officer did not die with Phase 2. Years later, during early development of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, the idea resurfaced. This time the character's gender was changed to female. She became Savik. So Zahn was erased from Star Trek history before audiences ever met him, but pieces of his DNA quietly survived in characters the franchise would later make famous. Number 10. The creator's joke that haunted Trek. In the film, Spock describes V'ger's origins on a planet populated by living machines with unbelievable technology. These machines found the damaged Voyager probe and rebuilt it into a sentient being of almost infinite power. That description sat quietly in the background for a decade. Then in 1989, Star Trek: The Next Generation introduced the Borg, a cybernetic race that absorbs technology and upgrades everything it encounters. The similarities were hard to miss. Fans immediately speculated that V'ger's machine planet was the Borg homeworld. And according to the Star Trek chronology written by Michael and Denise Okuda, Gene Roddenberry himself fueled the theory. Shortly after the first Borg episode aired, Roddenberry half-jokingly speculated that the planet Voyager encountered might have been the Borg homeworld. He never confirmed it as canon. But there's one more detail worth noting. When Spock describes V'ger's attitude toward interference, his exact words are, "Any show of resistance would be futile, Captain," which sounds strikingly similar to the Borg's iconic line, "Resistance is futile." Whether it was a joke or a prophecy, the idea has never fully gone away. Number 11. The audience that became the crew. The massive recreation deck scene, where the entire crew gathers to hear Kirk's mission briefing, was the largest gathering of people ever filmed in a single Star Trek scene at that time, with over 300 people on screen. Many of them were not professional actors. Gene Roddenberry invited real Star Trek fans to serve as extras, dressed in full Starfleet uniforms and alien makeup. What many fans don't know is that among them was Bjo Trimble, the woman who had organized the legendary letter-writing campaign that saved the original series from cancellation after its second season. After season 2, NBC nearly canceled the show because its ratings were considered too low. But Trimble helped organize a massive fan letter-writing campaign asking NBC to keep the series alive. The campaign worked, and Star Trek was given a third season, and that was not her only major contribution to Star Trek history. Trimble also played a major role in getting the name Enterprise attached to real American space history. NASA originally planned to name its first Space Shuttle orbiter prototype Constitution, not Enterprise. But Trimble helped lead the fan campaign that convinced President Gerald Ford to name the first Space Shuttle Enterprise. So in one scene, the fans were not just watching the future anymore, they were standing inside it. Number 12. Scotty invented the Klingon language. In the film's opening scene, Klingon crews shout commands in a language that sounds unmistakably alien. That language was not written by a linguist or a language consultant. It was invented by James Doohan, the actor who played Scotty. Doohan was an experienced voice actor and took it upon himself to create dialogue that sounded distinctly otherworldly. Here's how it actually worked. The Klingon actors on set spoke their lines in English. Their voices were then dubbed over with Doohan's invented words, carefully matched to their lip movements. According to actor Mark Lenard, who played the Klingon captain in that opening scene, Doohan recorded the lines on tape, and Lenard transcribed them phonetically to learn them. 5 years later, for Star Trek III, linguist Mark Okrand was hired to build a complete language with its own grammar and vocabulary, using Doohan's dozen or so original words as the foundation. That language is now recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most widely spoken fictional language on Earth. And it all started because Scotty decided to ad-lib some alien dialogue. Number 13. V'ger's voice was built by Kirk's nephew. The eerie, otherworldly sound that represents V'ger throughout the film comes from an instrument called the blaster beam. It's an 18-foot-long metal beam strung with tensed wires over electric guitar pickups, played by striking, rubbing, and plucking the strings with fingers, sticks, pipes, and even artillery shell casings. The man who built it was Craig Huxley. And here's the connection that ties it all together. As a child actor in 1967, Huxley played Peter Kirk, Captain Kirk's nephew. In the original series episode, Operation Annihilate, he went from acting on Star Trek as a kid to inventing the instrument that would define the sound of its greatest villain 12 years later. The instrument became so famous that it went on to appear in the scores for Aliens, Back to the Future, and even on Michael Jackson's Thriller album, all because Kirk's nephew grew up and started building instruments. Number 14. Shaved every single day of filming. Persis Khambatta, the Indian actress who played Lieutenant Elia, had her head freshly shaved every single day of production. After each shave, makeup artists spent up to 2 hours applying treatments to reduce glare from the hot studio lights before she could begin acting. Khambatta initially had no problem with the look, but as filming stretched on for months, she grew increasingly worried that her hair might never grow back properly. Gene Roddenberry then proposed to Paramount that they insure Khambatta's hair. When Paramount's legal team looked into the cost, they found the plan would be prohibitively expensive. So instead, the studio paid for Khambatta to visit the Georgette Klinger skincare salon in Beverly Hills to help keep her scalp and face healthy throughout production. She followed the routine for 6 months. Her hair eventually grew back without issue, but she chose to keep her shaved look long after the cameras stopped rolling. The following year, she made history as the first Indian person ever to present at the Academy Awards. Star Trek: The Motion Picture may look slow on the surface, but underneath all that silence is a movie about machines, memory, and a lonely creation desperate to know why it exists. And maybe that is why the strangest question in the film still hits today. If something we built finally looked back at us and asked for meaning, would we recognize it as alive or just as a machine that went too far? Let me know which hidden truth shocked you the most. And if you enjoyed this journey through Star Trek's forgotten history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.